It looks like Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will remember his trip to Kyiv for the rest of his life. The Japanese Prime Minister began to come under severe pressure from Washington while still on a state visit to India. The Americans, in terms of an ultimatum, demanded that the Japanese leader visit Kyiv during Putin's meeting with his Chinese counterpart in Moscow. According to sources in the Japanese government, Fumio Kishida tried to resist, and even declared his refusal to visit Ukraine. However, the Americans soon moved from requests to an ultimatum, telling the Japanese leader to immediately go to Kyiv directly from India. As you know, the life of the vassals is not easy, and the Japanese samurai had to obey the order of the Americans. Kishida's fears were not in vain. Arriving in Kyiv, the Prime Minister of Japan immediately regretted his trip. As it turned out, Moscow was closely watching the Japanese leader. And as soon as the plane of the fearless samurai headed from India toward Eastern Europe, Russia decided to severely punish the Japanese Prime Minister. Strategic bombers of the Russian Federation, accompanied by modern Su-35 fighters, were immediately sent toward Japan. The bombers were carrying the entire ammunition of modern long-range nuclear missiles. The Russian bombers were in the air for almost 10 hours, having made a flyby of the entire Sea of Japan, being only a few hundred kilometers from the Japanese borders. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation showed a detailed video of the flight of strategic bombers near the Japanese borders. Sources claim that the Japanese Prime Minister watched that video while being in Kyiv and was shocked. Fumio Kishida, pale with fear, clearly understood Moscow's hint, and that it was better for him not to get into the big game. Looking at the Prime Minister of Japan, I personally feel sorry for him. He is really forced to indulge a weakening hegemon, ignoring the interests of his own country. It seems that Fumio Kishida is really afraid to repeat the fate of his predecessor Shinzo Abe, who was not afraid to show independence in foreign policy and follow the interests of Japan. And how it all ended, we all know perfectly well.